This is The Speaking Show. I'm David Newman, and you're tuned in to the #1 podcast for speakers, consultants, and experts who want to speak more profitably. Selling and consultants, consultants and selling. These two words ordinarily not spoken on the same day, unless you're my next incredible guest, Jessica Magoch. Hello, my friend. Great to have you.
Hey, David. Nice to be here.
So I'm going to tee you up and I'm going to cut you loose. So
right.
You are a person who does, which is my lifelong dream, my lifelong goal for all of our clients, which is you make selling approachable, easy or easier, and dare I say, sometimes even fun. Would that be a fair statement?
Yes. My selling is way too serious, I think. Sales training's like, put you to sleep.
Okay. So we're going to talk about how to do it in a way that is easy, comfortable, fun for you, fun for the prospect, and very, very effective, especially, if I'm understanding correctly, for high ticket offers, high ticket consulting. We're not selling ebooks for $17. We're not selling low ticket. We're selling high end, premium products and services to premium clients, correct?
Yep, absolutely.
With that, let me turn it over to you, and I am going to sit back with my popcorn and learn from the master.
All right. Well, you might have to play with me a little bit.
That's okay. I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here.
All right. Well, what I'm going to share with you, David, and the rest of the audience is what I learned building a sales team from zero to over $100 million in 3 years. And now I help coaches, consultants, and techpreneurs build their commission-only sales teams, like an outsourced sales department. And what I learned going through all of that, kind of being a novice in sales, never having sold before, swore I would never sell. Like, who would do that? But I had gone to acting school. My parents were, very happy about that. That's sarcastic, of course. But when I got out, I had this great opportunity to sell so that I could audition at the same time. That's how I fell into sales. But then found out that actually acting and sales have a lot in common. So it's what we'll be talking about today, and kind of uncovering the answer to why people really buy and how you can use it and leverage it to make more sales in your business and become a master at people, at understanding human psychology so you can help people make the decisions that are best for them.
I love it.
And, the first thing we really need to talk about is mindset, sales mindset, because that whole thing about sales being icky and gross and yucky, right? That's all mindset stuff. So I want to give you guys a test. It's called the F test. There is a sentence. And in that sentence, I want you to count the number of F's in the sentence. Okay. Now, ignore all the other F's that might be on the screen or in your screen now. Just write on that slide. It's not a trick question. And write down your answer. David, you ready?
I am. I'm a little scared, but I'm ready.
All right. Here you go. So I do this with groups of like thousands of people up to, and even like groups of 5. It always is true that we tend to get different answers on this question. So I'm curious what your answer was, David.
I came up with 3.
Excellent answer. Okay, great. So I usually get a range of answers from 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So usually this is kind of what the chart looks like. So you're right there in like the majority over there in the 3s. Then the question is, how the heck do people have different answers to the same question? We saw the same slide, right?
We did.
I've had people say there were 100 F's and 0 F's and infinite, because they thought it was a trick question. But there's always a variety. So it brings this interesting question of who's right. Now, I personally think there's 5 F's when I first did this. What do you think the real answer is, David?
I'm going to stick with 3.
Okay. You want to bet on it?
I will bet you a chocolate milkshake that there are three F's.
And we live close to each other, so that could actually happen.
Yeah.
All right. So you think you're right. You're willing to bet on it. I think I'm right. I'm willing to bet on it. Who's really right? Well, the answer is we're both right. Now, I know that you don't want to hear that, but the truth is that your perception is your reality. Whatever you think is true for you. And whatever I think is true for me. And whatever the customer thinks is true for them.
I owe you a milkshake because there were more F's on there, weren't there?
Well, I'm going to go back because I know people usually like beg me to look back at the slide and count again. So let's go do that. Go ahead and read them again. See if you can, I've highlighted them. And I promise it's the same sentence.
Incredible.
So why does that happen? So in this particular case, usually if you missed an F, it's one of the ofs. In your case, probably all three ofs. Am I right?
Yeah.
So the reason that happens technically is because we look at the word of and we hear V in our minds and the F just disappears like it wasn't there.
Amazing.
It's crazy. Right? So if you're not a native English speaker, you tend to get the F's because you don't hear it in your head the same way. So it's a lesson that we can be really sure about our beliefs and what we think and our opinions about things, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're true. There's various, and hey, with the political climate as it is, we know people have really different opinions and everyone thinks they're right. So this is how we have conflict. But your perception is your reality. So whatever you think is true is true. There's no one reality that exists. There's no right or wrong. So what's important to understand is that, Dave, if you think that there's three F's and your customer thinks there's six, are you going to make the sale?
We are going to have a problem.
We're going to have a problem, right? Because we're not seeing eye to eye. So this whole lesson is just to bring awareness that your customers may have a different reality than you. And they probably do, right? They're on the journey maybe before the journey you were on a long time ago, or maybe we're never on that particular journey. And then the other question that goes a little deeper is, what's true for me that I might be projecting onto my customers? And that's where we get into like limiting beliefs and stuff like that, is because when I have a sales conversation, whatever beliefs I have are going to be projected onto the customer, good, bad, or otherwise. So this often comes when we start talking about price, like price objections. If you don't really, really, truly believe that it's worth it or that people should pay for it, it's going to come through somehow in like, you might cough a little bit, like clear your throat, or you might shift in your seat or touch your hair or something. So these are all ways like we communicate subconsciously what our limiting beliefs are. So those are like to think about because they, of course, take time to dig into and to understand. But how do I know if my customer is a 3 or a 6? That's the question I want to answer for you today, right? So that's important to know now that you know how different it can be. So the question is, what are people really buying, or what is my customer really buying? And in order to answer that question, we have to look at physics. So an object at rest will stay at rest unless acted upon by an outside force, right? So basically that means, if there's a ball on the grass, it's not going to move unless someone comes along and kicks it or the wind blows it, right? It's got to have an outside force. Well, the same is true for people. So this is the reason why people don't buy, is because an object at rest is going to stay at rest. People aren't going to change unless something comes along and changes them. Okay. So this natural resistance to change is part of our protective mechanism so that we don't end up in trouble. Like it's your natural human instinct to not want to change. So that's why like you can have a great offer. You can have an amazing sales page. You can have all the features and benefits laid out and the price is right and testimonials. And what else do we need? Urgency and scarcity and all that, guarantees. But your customer is still not going to want to change. You're still going to be dealing with this resistance. So then the question, oh, by the way, an object in motion is more likely to stay in motion. The opposite is true, right? Which is why like upsells and renewals and things like that are so valuable, because once people start paying, they want to continue in that direction. All right. So what's the outside force then to get people to change? The question. I don't like the word force in this because the word sales be forceful, but the outside force, to understand that, we have to look at the study of emotional intelligence. So I found a picture of Play-Doh brain, which is so much fun, right?
It's
So
great.
have you read much into this fun stuff? So now with my acting background, this is like super relevant why actors are so great at sales. It's not because they're good at lying, because people used to tell me that all the time. Oh yeah, because you know how to lie. I'm like, no, actors are actually really good at telling the truth. Anyway, that's a whole other subject. But the study of emotional intelligence teaches us that information enters the brain first through the limbic center. This is where you experience emotions before the information goes to the frontal lobe, which is where we sort out logic and reasoning, right? So, what that means is that when we get information in the form of like a movie or a sales pitch or anything else, we're going to have an emotional response first before we have a logical response. So we make a decision first emotionally. And then here's the tricky part: that logic that we find actually is just, we look for the logic to support the emotional decision we already made. We'll say that again. We look for the logic to support the emotional decision we already made. Okay. So customers are making, whether they know it or not, even the most analytical people, everyone's brain works this way. They have an emotional response and they're not aware of it. It's on a deep subconscious level. So you could make out spreadsheets and pros and cons lists and all that. Have you ever like had a bad relationship and trying to figure out, should I leave this person? And you write a pros and cons list, but like deep down, you just really want to stay. So somehow like the pros list ends up much longer. And the cons list is like, he cheated on me and he's addicted to drugs. Oh, it's only two things, you know? So it's the same thing. It's sales. That's how the human brain works. So now we know the answer to our question, what gets people to change is what? Emotions. All right. But which emotion? Now there's more questions, right? Which emotion? Because it's not the same for every product or service or client. So this is why it's also said that sales is the transference of emotion from one person to another. Because once I identify what that emotion is, then the question is, how do I get them to feel that? And that's very much of how you're feeling, what the emotion is that you're transferring to the customer. A huge mistake I see in this is people thinking that their customers need to feel scared or like a negative emotion in order to buy, right? That will get them to click on your ad. But in order to get them to buy and make the decision to change, they actually need to feel the opposite. So that's why high pressure sales, that's why nobody likes them. No customer likes them. No, even salespeople don't like doing it because that feeling of pressure is not what gets you to buy. Okay.
This is so critical. And, everyone needs to be taking notes furiously like I am. I just had a conversation, Jessica, the other day, literally like 24 hours ago. And the prospect, he wanted to do the program. He kept using the word safe. I don't know if doing this is safe right now. It was really that safety, that security, that confidence. I think if our prospects don't feel safe, don't feel secure, don't feel confident in buying from you, you're not going to make the sale no matter how good it looks on paper. Am I right?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Well, certainly as a coach or consultant, it's very much to do with you because you're the product. At the end of the day, they're buying you, but you might have a sales team or an enrollment team and they're not buying the salesperson, but the salesperson has to exude that same emotion, that
Right.
safety and confidence, security is always like part of it, right? But sometimes you're selling excitement, excitement of what their life could look like after.
Sure.
If I'm selling like an insurance policy, certainly it's like all about safety and security because they shouldn't get excited about their insurance policy. Right? They should just feel like safe that it's going to work when they need it to. Right?
Right.
So different emotions for different products and services. Even within the coaching industry, everyone's not, going to sell the same emotion. And then to recognize that 90% of how you transfer that is nonverbal. So it's not the words you say. We get stuck so much on scripts, Scripts is, yes, it's 10%, but 90% of it is everything else. It's the emotion that they feel, even through a Zoom call. How are you feeling right now? It's when they look at you, what's their first impression of you? What's their first impression of like what's behind you, right? All of that, your slide decks, all of that is part of what goes into that snapshot moment, judgment basically, but it's an emotional response that's difficult to overcome. So if you get it wrong the first time.
Hey, good looking. Are you currently getting paid to speak? Would you like to ramp that up? We can help. Book a confidential speaker strategy call with our team at doitmarketing.com/call, and let's see what we might do together. The call is free, but the results may be priceless.
Okay, so before we jump into like the little exercise, I'm going to take you over the piano just to like solidify this, if that's okay.
This will be exciting.
So I'm also a jazz musician. My other life, I just won the Philadelphia Music Award for Jazz in 2019. And so to me, music is such an important part of this idea of emotions and selling, because music's actually the fastest way to get someone to feel something. Think about like your favorite song and how it has the ability to change your mood in less than 3 minutes, basically, right? What's your favorite pump me up song?
I'm going to go with September by Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Oh, the 21st night of September, that one?
I think it's just called September.
Just called September, yeah. So I used to be in a party band. I had to learn all those songs,
Really anything by them or Kool and the Gang.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. We had this band I was in, they were together like 20 years before I joined them. So they were all like big in the 70s, that was like their heyday. So we had this Earth, Wind, and Fire medley that was, no joke, 20 minutes long. And then a Kool and the Gang one too. So music is a really powerful way to express and transfer emotions. In my opinion, it's not used nearly enough in sales. We know you can't watch a commercial without music in the background, but when you're doing like sales, why don't we use the power of music to help us sell? And so as a trainer, as a sales coach and trainer, I use the power of music to help people remember their lessons, because between the rhyming and the melody, it's going to sit with you in a different way so that you can remember it forever. So that's the purpose of why I do it. But I'd like to challenge everyone to think about how they're using or not using music in their business. Because remember back in the day, like everyone had a jingle. Every company had a jingle, right? It's effective, it gets in your head. There's no reason why David Newman can't have a jingle,
This has been my missing piece this whole time. This has been the piece.
Do it, do it. Do it, do it, do it, do it. Right? Say that enough times, people will not forget. Anyway, so that's my new like endeavor that I'm studying. I'm actually taking sales calls and breaking them down and putting them into musical composition so you can see the musicality of successful sales conversations versus unsuccessful, and watching like the velocity, the volume, the pitch, all of that, and drawing like conclusions about what makes a good sales conversational song.
Interesting.
And so use that in a work. And then my advanced level training is called Sales Musicology, where we take like what we know about music in the improvisational, really jazz music. That's my background, right? So how do we take like lessons from become like improvisational jazz into sales so we could be more improvisational in the moment, more creative, more emotional? So that's why like sales is kind of fun, it doesn't have to be this dry, like I'm smarter than you, so you should buy from me,
Right.
It feels like sometimes. So when you don't get this thing right about the emotions, people can ghost you, right? And that's usually what happens is like they felt something maybe, but then as soon as they get off the phone with you, that emotion goes down. And that's why it's so important to know that people are most likely to buy right after you make the offer. And after that, it's climbing an uphill battle, trying to get that emotion back so they can buy, because they need that emotional part.
Yeah.
If they just have the logic, they don't have, we talked about, how the brain works. They actually need this emotional part, and it's not manipulation. I don't want you to think of it that way, because yes, you can use this information and manipulate people, but that's why I don't teach this to people who I think are going to do that. It certainly is, but you can kind of smell it a mile away when that's people's intentions. But to be aware of it, that your emotions and what you're transferring is important. So if you're getting ghosted and you're feeling kind of toasted, come listen to this lesson on the science of emotions. People don't want to change. Sir Isaac Newton taught us that they're gonna resist a good thing. And that, my friend, is a fact. So how do you move them from their pain and misery? Emotions are the bridge to get them where they want to be. Emotions. You gotta get emotional now. Emotions. You gotta get emotional now. And that, my friends, is your science lesson. It's the answer to why people really buy. You gotta get emotional now. Emotions, you gotta get emotional now.
Wow. Very nice.
All right. Well, that will stick in your head, hopefully, for at least 5 minutes,
For sure.
So that was our lounge break. But now we got to get back to work.
Now, Jessica, let me ask you, the way you're breaking down these sales calls, the way you're doing this analysis, it's about the musicality of the sales conversation. But are we also saying that we can actually bring real music, not just our voices or our tone, our pace, our rhythm, but bring real music into the sales call, or just pay attention to the musicality of the conversation and of our voices?
Both. So I'm experimenting with that right now with some of the sales teams that I manage. And we're bringing in different kinds of music into the sales call and seeing what the effect is. So there's lots of studies done on like retail, music in retail, right? Like what kind of music sells best, which audience. So it's knowing your audience too, but then having that really good balance of the music not being a distraction
Right.
in it. But yeah, so we're studying that. You guys follow me. I'll share my findings with you. What kind of music works best in the sales conversation for different kinds of audiences, and if it does increase conversions. But absolutely, you are music. You are a musical instrument. So thinking of yourself as the musical instrument and what kind of music you're creating in the sales conversation.
That's great.
So let's put this all together real quick so that you guys have something to walk away with to really apply this, right? Because it's one thing to know, and maybe you've even heard before, like, oh yeah, decisions are made first, emotionally backed up with logic. But how are you actually applying that to your sales? That's all that matters, right? You can know everything in every book, but if you're not applying it to get results, then you don't really actually know it, right? Until you apply it and then teach it, right? That's the next level. So the first question is, what does my client need to feel in order to buy? Okay. There's really 3 pieces to this. So the first one is, what are they feeling when they have the problem that I solve? Don't think about your product or your offer or anything like that yet. Think all the way back. What is the actual problem that they're having when they click on my ad or they go, do a Google search? What is the pain that they're having now? It's more complicated than just pain and pleasure, right? It's some form of pain and some form of pleasure that they want to buy. But what are they feeling? And then whatever that, it's one word emotion. So make sure you're using emotions, because people tend to, describe things, but think about like, what are words that are emotions? And then what's the extreme version of that? Because the way that the ego works is it takes everything to the extreme. It's life or death. So, not being able to figure out how to do your bookkeeping is not just a frustration you wish you didn't have. It's like, I'm going to die because if I don't figure this out, my business is going to fall apart. The IRS is going to come get me and I'm going to be living on the streets, right? This is how the brain works. Logically, you go, well, that probably won't happen. But that is the emotional response that happens. So what's like the worst case scenario if they don't figure out this problem and then the emotion attached to that? So that's one word. And then what they want to buy, question 2 is, what do they want to feel after they've solved the problem? And it's usually the opposite, but not always exactly the opposite. Okay. So let's say I gained 20 pounds and I'm feeling lethargic and, well, some people, I feel fat. It's not a feeling, but I feel fat, right? But go deeper. How does that really hurt me? Am I feeling worthless? Am I feeling like unlovable? Like those are the emotions that people pay to solve, to get out of their lives, right? I don't pay to get back into my jeans. I'll just buy another pair of jeans. Yeah, you hear that a lot. Like, I just want to I might say that because that's how I logically explain it, because I'm too afraid to say like, what I really want is to have every guy turn their head and every woman say, what is she doing? She looks so damn good, right? Like, I'm not going to tell everyone that, but deep down, that's what your customers want. You need to know that. So what do they really want? I really want to be able to walk around the locker room naked and be, proud of it. Like if I wanted to, I would. If I run down the beach in a bikini and not like everyone look at me for the wrong reasons, but for the right reasons. So that's something. What are they really buying? And then like I gave examples of like running down the beach in a bikini and not jiggling everywhere. Like what can you use to show instead of tell? So examples like analogies are really helpful here. Use your high school, literature, techniques, metaphors. I feel like blank, to make it a little more interesting. And then how do I help them do that? So that's really that's like the bridge. Like, okay, where they are, where they want to be, but make sure it's the emotions. And then what you do is the how. And that's just the logic. So when you create this, what I call perfect pitch sandwich, the logic is in the middle and the top and bottom are the emotions, the bread, the pieces of the bread. So think about what those emotions are. And then when you work them into like a pitch, like an example of, like you may have seen this before, like the I help statement, like I help this kind of person with this problem so they can have this result. That's basically your pitch, but make sure it's emotional. It has those emotion words in it, and you're hitting both the before, the after, and then the logic is just like the simple part with my 8-week course, it's like with my 3-month coaching program. That's it. People have a tendency to like go all the way to the like so much logic, and forget that it's really emotion that's having the impact. So David, there you have it. My accelerated version of why people buy.
What a great episode. Wowza. Tell you what, if you want to ramp up your revenue as an expert who speaks professionally, you should really check out our free online training at doitmarketing.com/webinar. So we're in a sales conversation and I'm trying to, put some of these pieces together, and maybe they don't all go together literally, but when we're talking about the problem or we're asking them about the symptoms and their feelings and their situation, like you were doing on the piano, is that sort of like low and slow and, we're kind of mirroring like, well, Jessica, I don't know. I mean, I've been struggling with my business. And then, so we're kind of in that mode with them. And then we say, well, what could change? And then our tone goes up a little bit more optimistic, little ray of sunshine over the horizon. Well, what if you could unlock that lead generation problem? What if you could generate that extra $10,000 or $15,000 a month in your business? A little bit faster, a little bit brighter, a little bit more perky. Is that what we're talking about? Or what are some nuances, or did I get any of that right at all?
Yeah, you totally got that right. So like what I want everyone to understand is like things like that work because you're asking them to feel something. So My whole goal with this is like to make you masters of the sales conversation, right? So you understand like, okay, someone said to ask this question, but if you understand why it works, then the actual words don't matter as much as why it works. So you're there with them in the pain, you're getting them to feel the pain and then feel what it's going to be like on the other side. So this is where salespeople are so powerful because it doesn't matter if you're selling coaching or technology or software or anything like that, because they're all things to solve problems. The key is to think about how they're going to feel. So how's it going to feel to have 10K extra a month, David? How's it going to feel? What's going to be different in your life if that happens? Because the 10K is the logic, but how is it going to make you feel? Using words like, how does that make you feel? Like if you answer an objection at the end, you could say, so how does that make you feel? Because I want to go to the feelings all the time instead of what do you think? I want to know how you feel.
Now,
Subtle
I've
difference.
had some pushback from the engineering types.
Yeah.
And
My favorite.
for their engineers selling to other engineers, probably the worst sales conversations you've ever heard in your life. But I'll tell you why they're so bad. I think when I said this to my engineer salesperson client, she pushed back like nobody's business. No, David, that won't work for me. My prospects aren't emotional. They don't respond to emotion. And you've heard the whole talk track there. And what I told her is, listen, yeah, they're engineers, but they're human beings first. So do they have kids? Do they have moms and dads? Do they have brothers and sisters? Do they have kittens and puppies? There's love and emotion and sadness and fear in all of them. You may have to dig a little bit harder. When you get this pushback from your clients who work with you, and they say, Jessica, my people aren't emotional. They're not used to that vocabulary. They're not used to answering how they feel. That would just make them feel very uncomfortable, and it would make it like an alien language to them. True or false? And then how do you turn that around with your clients?
Well, I mean, unless you are actually selling to robots, which one day in the future might be true. I don't know. I'm not willing to take it off the table. But if they're human beings, this is how they work. It's on a subconscious level. So they're not aware of it and you're not aware of it either. Most people have no idea how their own brains work. If we did, then we could say, well, if I feel that way, they probably feel that way too.
Right.
But everything can go back to the emotion. So when I deal with like super analytical people, I think about, one of the emotions that they want to feel is smart, brilliant, right? So
Yeah.
it's really when someone gets really analytical on you and pulls facts and figures and all this, like I'm saying to myself, they just want to feel smart right now. So I'm going to allow them to feel smart. And I'll say something like, oh, wow, that's like really interesting information you have there. Like, that's so brilliant. I never saw it that way, And that's really what they're buying from me. Because if they buy this product that's going to make them look good to the rest of the company, then that's how they get the emotion that they're after.
I love it. Yes, yes, yes. Well, we're going to leave people with an awesome and amazing resource that you have for our summit participants. And I love what you said about, what? It's not about the script. It's about understanding the emotion, understanding what makes them buy, understanding them what makes them not buy. Mm-hmm. But you also have a pretty fantastic scripting tool, which is called the 8-step code to convert leads to sales. Tell us about what folks will find in there when they go pick it up.
Yeah. So you're going to get my exact script that closed over 100 million in sales. It's the 8-step code. And when you couple it with what you learned today, you got a home run. So you have the emotion behind it, and then you have the actual, what to say, the process of it. Because that's often like the first thing you can fix is the process. It's like, oh, you missed a whole step. Like get the steps down, get the words down, and then add in that emotion to it, and you're on your way.
I love it. And it's a framework. It's a framework that people can customize to their own personality. And I think that's what's so important about everything that you teach and the way that you work with your clients is this isn't a level of, like you said with acting, right? Selling is not about lying. Selling is about revealing the profound truth that your prospects are experiencing and really getting them to sell themselves.
It's actually a really powerful responsibility because in many ways, the salesperson or the coach, whoever's doing the sales call, is creating a reality, drawing a reality, a vision that they didn't see before. That's why they're on the call with you, because they can't see a way out. They have a glimpse of it. You're drawing out like, well, what if this? What if that? What would it look like if this? Now, if you're studying metaphysics and all that, and you think about, well, what happens when you think something and then things go into motion to make it true, And one of those steps is, buying the program, because that's the how to get to where you want to be. But the person on the other side is guiding them, creating this vision, and then encouraging them to step into it. So how much is that like creating the future? And this is why, I think salespeople deserve more of a better reputation, because you have the ability to create the future for other people. It's a big responsibility.
That's totally it. So as a consultant and as a professional salesperson of your consulting, you are a transformation agent.
Yes.
Creating better futures for your clients and better results in the future.
Absolutely.
Well, Jessica Magoch, you're a rock star. I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing your brilliance. Everyone, run right now. Pick up this bonus. You can use it this afternoon. If you're watching in the afternoon,
you can use it on your next call.
Morning. If you're using it this morning, you go use it tonight if you pick it up tonight. But no matter what, pick it up, because Jessica's brilliant. Connect with her and start using this new tool in your toolkit. Thank you, my friend. Great to have you on with us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.